In this video, we're going to be memorising Galatians chapter 1, verse 1, and we can see it written in full up the top. Let's read through that. Paul, an apostle, not from men, nor through man, but through Jesus Christ and God the Father, who raised him from the dead. Underneath, we can see that we've split the verse up into 4 different lines, and that is so that we can pull apart the verse and understand how it is structured to help us memorise. So let's go through and try and understand the verse. First of all, in that first line, we have Paul, an apostle. And that phrase, an apostle, is really the focus of this whole verse, because he goes on to say, not from men, nor through man, but through Jesus Christ and God the Father, who raised him from the dead. Now, we can see at the end of that first line there is a hyphen, and at the end of the last line there is a hyphen. And everything that comes between those two hyphens is talking about that phrase, an apostle. So Paul, an apostle, not from men. Now, notice they're not from men, nor through man. They're very similar. They're both talking about people. And both of those 2 3-word phrases also begin with a negative word, not from men, nor through man. That should help us remember it a little better. But then on top of that, we have a reversal. So that second line is talking about where Paul's apostleship is not coming from. It is not from men, nor through man. But that links to the third line, but through Jesus Christ and God the Father, who raised him from the dead. And we can link that last line with the second last line by noting that the who in the last line is God the Father, and him in the last line is Jesus Christ. So God the Father raised Jesus Christ from the dead, but through Jesus Christ and God the Father, who raised him from the dead. Let's read through it one more time. Paul, an apostle, not from men, nor through man, but through Jesus Christ and God the Father, who raised him from the dead. And as we continue to look at this verse, it's just helpful to remember that those 2 hyphens that I pointed out earlier, one at the end of the first line, one at the end of the last line on this slide, everything between them is talking about Paul being an apostle, and it's stating the authority of his apostleship. It's not something he decided, it's something that God decided. And in a minute, what I'm going to be able to do is to go through and write out the first letter of every single word written here, keeping its capitalization, as well as adding the punctuation. And you can see that's happening now. What this is useful for is to go through and recite the verse from memory, but using those first letters as a prompt, and also as a check to make sure that we are saying the words in the correct order, but also to make sure that we are not missing a line. So what we're going to be doing here, once I finish writing, is going through and just trying to recite the whole thing from memory. So let's go through and try and recite it only looking at those white letters. Paul, an apostle, not from men, nor through man, but through Jesus Christ and God the Father, who raised him from the dead. Let's do it one more time, reading from the top this time. Paul, an apostle, not from men, nor through man, but through Jesus Christ and God the Father, who raised him from the dead. And now what we're going to be doing is trying to make this a little cleaner. There's lots of colour on the screen. Let's make it a little cleaner and have a look at just the text. So Paul, an apostle, not from men, nor through man, but through Jesus Christ and God the Father, who raised him from the dead. And what we're actually going to do again here is we're going to strip away everything but those first letters. So see if you can recite this from memory. Paul, an apostle, not from men, nor through man, but through Jesus Christ and God the Father, who raised him from the dead. Now, on this last slide, we're going to recite verse 1 just by itself as a single line of letters, using that as a prompt where we need to, or to check once we have recited it. So let's go through that now. Paul, an apostle, not from men, nor through man, but through Jesus Christ and God the Father, who raised him from the dead. It brings us to the end of this video, but in the next video, we're going to be going through and having a look at verse 2 and then adding that on to the end of verse 1. See you there.